Kicked out at 17 with just $12 and a trash bag. Now my family wants to live in my $750,000 home after years of silence and lies. I was 17 when my dad told me I wasn't built for success. It wasn't some heat-of-the-moment insult number. He said it calmly, like he was doing me a favor. Like the sooner I accepted my place in the family, the easier life would be for all of us. "You're the spare," he said, not even looking up from his newspaper. "Your brother's the heir. You're just extra." I think that moment carved something into me. It didn't just sting in the way insults usually do, it lodged itself deep, like a splinter I couldn't dig out. And maybe, in some strange way, it became the fire that kept me alive. Growing up, I always felt like the background character in someone else's story. My older brother, Nathan, was the golden child, the one who couldn't fail even when he did. Star athlete, honor roll student, family favorite. He had the Lakeview bedroom, the brand new car the day he turned 16, and a dad who called him champ even when he messed up. Me? I was the shadow trailing behind him. I got the hand-me-downs, the suspicious glances, the constant lectures for existing too loudly. At first, I thought maybe I was the problem. That maybe if I just worked harder, maybe if I smiled more, maybe if I swallowed my voice long enough, I'd finally be seen. So, I did all of that. I got a job at 15, bussing tables until midnight while still keeping my grades solid. I even started tutoring Nathan in math when he began slipping. But nothing changed. My mom still called me lazy whenever I slept in on Sundays, even after closing late at the diner. My dad still said I had no ambition when I mentioned wanting to go to culinary school instead of college. And Nathan? He just smirked in that infuriating way whenever they tore into me, like he was silently enjoying every dig. Things escalated the summer before my senior year. Nathan wrecked his car after a party, completely totaled it while driving drunk. I was the one who found him crying in the garage, blood trickling from his forehead, begging me not to tell mom and dad. I didn't. I thought protecting him would finally prove my loyalty, finally earn me respect. So I lied. I told them I'd borrowed the car without asking, that I panicked and ran after the crash. I thought maybe they'd see I was capable of sacrifice, that I wasn't useless after all. But instead, they kicked me out. My dad didn't even raise his voice. He just folded his newspaper, looked at me like I was nothing, and said, "Pack your things. You've embarrassed this family enough." That night, I slept in a bus shelter 2 blocks away. It was humid, the kind of summer night where the air sticks to your skin. The metal bench pressed into my back, and every time a car passed, I jolted awake, terrified someone would see me. The next morning, I tried to go back for my school backpack. Instead, I found a black trash bag sitting on the porch. My clothes were shoved inside like garbage. On top was a note in my father's handwriting. "You're on your own now. Learn something from this." No one checked on me. Not once. My mom told people at church that I had chosen the streets because I was rebellious. Nathan went to Florida 2 weeks later, posting beach selfies like nothing had happened. And me? I worked double shifts at a convenience store, slept in the stockroom on flattened cardboard boxes when the manager wasn't looking, and learned how long I could make a gas station sandwich last. But the worst part wasn't the hunger or exhaustion. It was the silence. Birthdays passed with no phone calls. Christmases with no card, no gift, not even my name mentioned. It was like I had never existed. For 3 years, that was my life. I scraped together community college tuition through scholarships and endless shifts. I earned an associate degree in business, studying from borrowed textbooks, Wi-Fi stolen from the library, and too much caffeine. I built a tiny freelance marketing business, one client at a time. At first, it was local diners that couldn't figure out Facebook ads, mom-and-pop shops that didn't know how to sell online. But little by little, my name spread. For the first time, I thought maybe I was free. Until last month. I got a text from my mom. Just one line, "Is that your face on the billboard off Route 9? And yes, it was. The local Chamber of Commerce had put me up on a billboard as a young entrepreneur spotlight after I helped several local shops triple their online sales during the pandemic. It wasn't a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but to me, it meant everything. It was proof that I wasn't just a spare. Proof that I was more than a shadow. 2 hours later, my dad called. I didn't answer. Then came the voicemails. From Nathan, from aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them suddenly warm, suddenly supportive, suddenly curious about me. I knew. I just knew. They hadn't changed. They were only reaching out because they saw I had something they wanted. And sure enough, the next day my mom called again. This time, she left a message. "We're going through a rough patch. Nathan and his wife might lose their place. We were wondering if you still had that spare room you used to mention." I laughed out loud. That spare room? It didn't exist. Because I hadn't just rented an apartment. I'd bought the whole house. And I bought it in cash. I didn't respond. Not that day, not the next. Not even when my Aunt Janice messaged me on Facebook, "You know, it would really mean a lot to the family if you stepped up right now." Stepped up. The words nearly made me choke on my coffee. Where were they when I was sleeping under a bus shelter? Where were they when I ate expired crackers for dinner? It's funny how people love to use the word family like it's a get-out-of-jail-free card. Like blood erases neglect. Like DNA cancels abandonment. I stayed silent. But apparently, silence wasn't enough. The following week, I pulled into my driveway after a client meeting and froze. Across the street sat a silver Honda Civic, my parents' car. And there, on my porch, was my mother, holding a Tupperware container of banana bread like this was a casual Sunday drop-in. "Oh my God, you look so good," she said, arms reaching to hug me. I didn't move. I just stared. Because to me, she was a stranger. "Mom," I said, quiet but sharp. "Why are you here?" Her smile faltered. "I wanted to see you. It's been so long. I thought maybe we could talk, catch up." I leaned against the doorframe. "Is Nathan okay?" Her face flickered. And there it was, the real reason. Not love, not regret, not even apology. Just need. He and Alyssa lost their apartment, she admitted. The baby's on the way, and they just need a place for a little while. Just until they get back on their feet. Your father thought maybe we could all stay here. I almost laughed. "You kicked me out with a trash bag and a note," I said slowly. "I begged you to listen, and you told me to learn something from it. And now you want me to give up my home for the son you threw me away for?" She blinked, as if my words physically struck her. It was complicated back then. We were just doing what we thought was right. "No," I cut in. "You were doing what was easy. You believed whatever Nathan said because it was convenient. It didn't matter if it ruined me." For a moment, I thought I saw shame in her eyes. But then came the same defensiveness I'd grown up with. "Well, we didn't know how things would turn out. You've clearly done well for yourself, so maybe it wasn't such a bad thing after all." That was it. That was their angle. Abandon me, then take credit for my survival. "You're not coming inside," I said firmly. "Tell Dad, tell Nathan, tell everyone else, this house doesn't have a spare room." Her mouth opened, probably to beg or guilt-trip me, but I was already turning the doorknob. That's when she hissed the word she thought would undo me. "You're being selfish." I turned back, smiled just slightly, and said, "No, Mom. I'm just done being useful to people who only remember I exist when they need something. Then I closed the door. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mother's voice still echoing in my head, "You're being selfish." Selfish. That was their favorite word to throw at me growing up. If I wanted space, I was selfish. If I wanted recognition, selfish. If I wanted to breathe without Nathan's shadow smothering me, selfish. And for a split second, guilt crept in. The old, familiar ache of wondering if I was the villain now. After all, Nathan had a baby on the way. Was I heartless for saying no? But then I remembered. I remembered the look on my mother's face when Nathan lied about me hitting him in middle school. I remembered how she clutched him, crying for his pain, while glaring at me like I was a monster. I remembered the day I was dragged out of my school, the day they shoved me onto the streets with a trash bag and a note. No. I wasn't selfish. I was simply done. But I wasn't finished yet either. Because part of me, not the vengeful part, but the part that longed for truth, wanted accountability. I wanted the people who whispered about me at family gatherings, the cousins who avoided me, the aunts who believed every story, to finally hear my side. So I sat down at my desk and drafted a message. Not to my parents. Not to Nathan. But to my extended family. I told them everything. About Nathan's car crash. About the false confession. About the trash bag on the porch. About the 3 years of silence. About the banana bread ambush. I attached screenshots of Nathan's old texts, including the one where he bragged about how easy it was to get rid of me. When I hit send, my hands were shaking. For years, I'd been invisible. Now I was forcing them to see me. It took less than an hour for my phone to explode with notifications. "Aunt Marie, is this real? I never knew. Uncle Leo, your parents told us you ran away. That you were doing drugs. Cousin Denise, I always wondered why you disappeared. I'm so sorry." Others chimed in with shock, guilt, awkward apologies. I didn't write for pity. I didn't even need their sympathy. What I wanted was the truth laid bare, no longer buried under Nathan's charm or my parents' lies. And then came the message I least expected. "Alyssa. Nathan's wife. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. He told me you were unstable and violent. That your grandmother took you in after you assaulted your mom. I feel sick." I stared at her words for a long time, unsure how to respond. Then another message came. "I left him last night." My breath caught. She went on, she'd read my message aloud to Nathan. At first, he laughed. Then he got defensive, then angry. He grabbed her phone, tried to delete the email, screamed at her for being naive. Alyssa, 7 months pregnant and finally done with the gaslighting, packed a bag and left for her sister's place. My message, she said, snapped something in her. She finally saw the pattern. She finally realized her baby deserved better. I didn't gloat. I didn't say, "Told you so." I just typed, "You did the right thing." For the first time, I felt something that wasn't anger or hurt. It was relief. Not just for me, but for her, for the baby. Maybe the cycle really could break. But Nathan never did like being exposed. 3 days later, I was leaving my favorite coffee shop when I heard someone call my name. I turned, and there he was. Nathan. He looked like a shadow of himself. His hair was greasy, his varsity jacket frayed at the cuffs, the same jacket he wore in high school, as if clinging to the last time he mattered. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw unshaven. "You think you're better than me now?" he sneered, stepping closer. I didn't answer. "You always played the victim," he spat. "Even now. What, you want everyone to feel bad for you? You think anyone gives a damn about your sob story? The smell of cheap beer rolled off him. His voice was venom, but his eyes? His eyes were desperate. You lied, I said quietly. He laughed, bitter and sharp. So what? You survived, didn't you? You've got your big house and your stupid billboard. Quit crying. There were 100 things I wanted to say, every sleepless night, every meal I skipped, every birthday I spent alone. But I didn't. Because I realized something, Nathan wanted a scene. He wanted me to break, to yell, to prove his version right. Instead, I stepped around him, opened my car door, and said just one thing. You lied. I thrived. And now you have to live with that. Then I drove away, leaving him standing small in the parking lot. That night, I had dinner with my grandmother. She was the only one who had never turned her back on me. She listened as I told her everything, the email, Alyssa leaving, Nathan confronting me. She just held my hand across the table, her palm warm and steady. You did good, she said simply. And that was all I needed. A week later, a certified letter arrived. My parents, through a lawyer, were threatening defamation over my email. I laughed so hard I nearly cried. My own lawyer assured me it was baseless. Nathan's own written admission alone would bury their case. And sure enough, after one exchange, I never heard from their lawyer again. Silence. Once more. But this time, the silence was mine. That's when I did something I hadn't done in years. I found the note they'd left on my trash bag, "You're on your own now. Learn something from this." And framed it. I hung it in my office, right next to my Chamber of Commerce award. Some people frame diplomas. I framed a warning. And I turned it into a promise. It might have ended there. But life has a way of testing you even after you think you've won. One evening, I heard a knock on the door. Not a voicemail, not a text, but an actual knock. I opened it and froze. It was my father. But not the man I remembered. This wasn't the booming voice, the squared shoulders, the superiority. This was a man shrinking inside his own body, his sweater frayed, his face pale. He held an envelope. "I'm signing over the house," he said, eyes averted. "Your grandmother said you earned it more than any of us." My chest tightened. "Where is she?" I asked. "She's sick," he said finally, looking at me. "Cancer. Stage 4. I didn't slam the door. I didn't rage. I just sat with him on the porch where my mother once tried to barter guilt for a spare room. And in that moment, my anger wasn't the loudest thing in me anymore. My love for her was. 3 weeks later, my grandmother passed. At my home. The home they once told me I didn't deserve. I held her hand as her breaths grew shallow. She wasn't afraid. She just whispered, "Promise me you'll plant something new every spring. That's how you start over." And then she was gone. But she left me one last gift. Under her bed was a wooden box, sealed with a letter in her neat handwriting, to the granddaughter they never saw. Inside were pages of journal entries spanning years. Notes about how my birthdays were ignored. About how Nathan staged lies. About how my mother once called me a mistake when she thought no one was listening. Proof. All of it. And at the bottom of the box was a deed transfer. Her house, notarized, already signed in my name. She had rewritten our legacy with her last act. The funeral was small, just how she would have wanted. A circle of people who stood with me through silence, not just when the spotlight turned. But of course, my parents came anyway. Nathan too, looking like a ghost in a borrowed suit. After the final prayer, my mother approached. She didn't cry. She just looked at the house, the garden, the people surrounding me. "Is it true?" she asked. Did she leave it all to you? I met her eyes and said the one thing she always denied me. Yes. That night, they left a letter on my doorstep. Cold, formal, typed. A request for temporary accommodation for healing and transition. They wanted to live in her house. The same house they had abandoned her in. I sat with it for a long time. Then I wrote back. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Turner. Thank you for your interest in staying at the residence located at 49 Maplewood Lane. At this time, all rooms are currently occupied by peace, silence, dignity, and the long overdue scent of lavender. As such, we are unable to accommodate guests who abandoned these values in the past. May you find shelter in the structures you built with your choices. Kindly despair no more. I posted it online. It went viral. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. Thousands of strangers messaged me, not with pity, but with recognition. Because there are so many of us. So many spares. The children overlooked, underestimated, cast aside. But here's the truth they don't want to admit: sometimes the spare part is the piece that keeps the whole engine running. This spring, I walked through my grandmother's garden, hands in the soil she once called her living prayer. And I planted something new. A white rose bush, named Rebirth. Because I am not a spare. I am the seed that survived. And now, I am the root that will never be forgotten.